So last week we talked about biological differences between males and females, and of course, respecting the spectrum, that it's not a black and white issue, but a spectrum. And we also looked at learned gender roles and building on these insights of biological differences. We're looking at something today which is called the fear-shame downward spiral. And I learned about that from a book called How to Improve Your Marriage Without Talking About It by Steve Stosny and Patricia Love. And for me, this resonated very deeply what they wrote in this book. And the title is a little misleading. It doesn't mean that you no longer talk with your partner and your relationship will magically improve, but you change the way you talk to your partner. That's like the basic essence and what we want to explore today. And what's unique about this module today is, from my experience, some people never experience the fear-shame downward spiral for some reason. They're just maybe conditioned a little differently or have a different psychological makeup. And for other people, this is often a big aha, and they go like, oh my God, I never saw this. And now that you explained it and then we practiced it, I really see how this impacted my past and maybe my current relationship. So one of the people who feels like, I don't know what they're talking about, this was never a problem for me, then maybe see it as a vaccination if you want. So you're becoming immune for that happening to you in the future, or you can use that knowledge to support your family and friends, because at the very least, you will know of some people who went down the fear-shame spiral. And so I want to briefly share my screen to show you the basics here. So it's a nice image I found built with shame and fear. And these are very primal emotions that humans around the world experience fear and shame. It has to do with evolution, that very generally speaking, if you look at a long evolutionary trajectory, 100,000 of years of humans being self-conscious and aware of threats and can think about the past and future, we can see that females, let's say in a tribal context or in a very early human context, life was very dangerous for them, for men too, but for females in a different way, to be raped, to be abducted, to be rejected by the tribe. And so that became deeply embedded in their unconscious, that they need to be protected and provided for, specifically if they're mostly pregnant and have little children around and need to be cared for. And so under relationship stress, and this is important to know, right? When there is relationship stress, females may have a tendency to feel threatened, scared, abandoned, disconnected. And for them, to be loved, to get the feeling that they're loved, gives them that security of being protected and provided for. And there's a very interesting scene in the Netflix documentary Inside Bill's Brain, which is about Bill Gates and his wife, Melinda Gates. And at one point, she says, well, Bill was traveling a lot. And when I was alone at home with my children, I didn't feel safe. And I went like, she's married, to one of the richest men now in the world. And I'm sure their house has security guards and cameras and everything you can imagine, right? It's probably a fortress. And she doesn't feel safe when Bill is not home. So, and very often, I hear that from women, this need for safety. And I have heard from some women who say, well, I can defend myself. I never feel scared, So again, this does not apply to everyone. And then what's less commonly known, and specifically to women, is that men experience fear too, of course, but we're usually afraid of looking incompetent or weak. And there's this underlying shame. And so for men, there's this primary fantasy, I need to have sex and be supported and appreciated. And if we're not supported and appreciated, and in most cases don't get care and love and sex from women, there is this underlying fear, shame, I'm not good enough to make her feel safe and happy. And I'm not appreciated as a protector provider, or she does not look up to me, she doesn't respect me, she doesn't honor me. And so men often don't understand that when they withdraw or don't make our partner, if we don't make our partner feel safe and cared for and provided for, right? Even if she's strong and has a good income and all these things, obviously Melinda Gates doesn't have to worry about any of these things. She cannot control her deeply programmed unconscious reptilian part of her brain that still brings up this fear when Bill is not home, to use that as a general metaphor. And we men, and so we men often don't understand that. And on the other side, women often don't understand that when they criticize men or put them down or don't care for them, that we, in a subtle way or not so subtle way, go into this shame and then withdraw even further. And this leads to this, we could call infamous fear-shame downward spiral that we want to explore today in 2 exercises. And I'm just walk you down the fear-shame dynamic real quick. So we men are, and again, we men, most men are basically conditioned, programmed to desire females. And as Warren Farrell once said, to go from eye contact to intercourse in as quick and a straight line as possible. And generally in the modern world now, we call that romance. So when we feel attracted to a female, certain hormones kick in our brain, and we desire that female, and we do pretty much everything we can to win the heart of the woman and to have sex with her. And so we listen, we become sensitive, we shower, we make ourselves presentable, we bring flowers, we're doing everything to win the heart and to show ourselves from our best sides. At least most men do that. And we call that romancing. We call that romance in today's world. And females who desire to be in a relationship, and I didn't put that here, but somebody pointed it out, they make themselves often seductive, so and attractive. And so we're here in this romancing phase, but once from an evolutionary perspective, right, and we need to point it out from an evolutionary perspective, once we've won the heart of the woman and had sex with her, there's no more evolutionary advantage really for being romantic. It's just energy wasted. So most men then over time go back to working and to keeping their shit together and most men, again, providing, protecting for their family, their partner. And so when this romancing stops, at least in the modern world, then often women start to complain, to say, you're no longer listening to me and no longer paying me the attention that you were paying at the beginning. You're basically a different person. You become a different person. And that's true. We become a different person very often because we have this deprogramming that as long as we show up in the evening and bring home the kill and protect and provide, that, should make us lovable. And if I look at my parents, my father, he was just loved for being a good provider and protector and coming home every night and not being drunk. I never saw my father drunk. I never saw him violent. And that was enough for him, that we all loved him, and my mother loved him and still loves him. He passed away 15 years ago. And so, but often in modern, postmodern relationship, this complaining starts, and then we men do this traditional thing that we hear, oh, she has a problem, and in order for me to avoid shame, I need to fix the problem. And there are these funny videos like, it's not about the nail. Maybe I show it at the end of our session today, where there's this point made that in most cases, not always, but in most cases, when the woman complains, she just wants us to listen and to show empathy and love and reassure her, and not really practically try to find a practical solution to the challenge that she's facing. So we're not really hearing what she's saying, and we're trying to fix her. And inside of her, or maybe even verbally, she says, I don't try to fix me, right? Just listen to me. And so when this fixing doesn't work, and she gets sort of like the attention and the connection, then often males perceive that as nagging, because there's sometimes the tendency, if I just say it enough over and over and over and over the same thing, right, that maybe finally it will sink into him. But the man more and more goes like la 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 la, right? There's like a screen going down, and we're tuning out the onslaught of same old thing, right? And we don't really getting what she really wants. And there's this phenomenon that we withdraw into our cave, which means we turn on the TV, or we go into the garage and fix the motorcycle, or whatever. I don't know what men do, play computer games, playing golf. We're basically doing exactly the opposite to avoid the shame than what she is really needing from us, right? We're withdrawing. And then when we come back out of the cave, we often get shamed, right? In this, like, you're not the guy you were, or look at our neighbor, or, this is kind of like, yeah, putting us down in a way that that is very shameful. And sometimes then men get angry. What the hell do you want, right? Nothing. I mean, what else can I do? I'm doing everything I can. Or we become passive aggressive. I'm more a passive aggressive guy. I go like, well, if I'm not good enough, then maybe you need to find somebody else. And that's, of course, also not helping. This is not what my partner wants, but I've sadly fell in at this stage into this passive aggressive trap of just feeling shame of not being good enough, and then maybe even feeling like the right thing to do is to help her to find somebody who can make her happy, because obviously I'm not good enough. I cannot make her happy, and I don't want to be a burden for her. But that's completely stupid, right, to do that. So being aggressive or being passive aggressive, not the right response here. And then sometimes, especially when we get aggressive, angry, the woman may become emasculating, which means, translated, she rips off your balls and doesn't hand them back, right? So there is this, like, you're such a loser, right? You're always so angry, you're just like whatever, you have all the issues with your mother and whatever, and everybody says you're not good, or whatever it is. This is like the first part of rock bottom, where you feel your manhood is taken away and you're thrown into the gutter. And so sometimes then men become sexually unfaithful, and women, when this goes down the spiral, they become what I call emotionally unfaithful. And with postmodern men, or even modern, sometimes maybe the men become emotionally unfaithful, and the females become sexually unfaithful. And that's basically means, I mean, sexually unfaithful, that's pretty easy to understand. And emotionally unfaithful means when we talk to other people about our relationship problems, and other people, I don't mean a therapist, but I mean friends, and often of the opposite sex. And that then, there is the danger then that the relationship then ultimately crashes when we become sexually or emotionally unfaithful.